Hey guys, you're watching the Best Practices Show, where we take a look at the best business practices from the best dental practices all over the world. And I have a huge treat for you today. One of my good friends from overseas. This guy is brilliant, and he's going to show us the one thing your practice needs, or one of the things that your practice and the people around you really need. And it's not more new patients. Dr. Ian Buckle from the Dawson Academy, UK. So you don't want to miss this. Do me a favor, grab a pen and hit the share button. We'll see you in a second. Hey guys, welcome back to the Best Practices Show. We are having so much fun shooting these, and I just love the feedback and all the suggestions you guys are giving us. So please continue to give us that feedback. And today is a super special edition. You're going to want to see this. This is very cool and very entertaining from an incredible clinician and great friend. So before we get started, a couple show notes. We are shooting this live on Facebook. So as you're watching this, if you're watching it during the live broadcast, please add your questions in the feed, because I'll ask Ian the questions directly, because I want to make sure you guys are getting the answers and the right help for the things that you might be thinking about. Or if you're watching this later on, feel free to add a question and we'll make sure we get you the right answer for that. Also, too, we're loving the questions so much. Every week we're giving away a free Apple iWatch and 2 tickets to Activate, which is our practice growth seminar that you do not want to miss. And it's almost sold out in the June course. So if you're thinking about going, you want to check that out. And we actually gave one yesterday to Deepak Madhav, who's been asking some great questions. So I love the thoughtful questions. It's so good, because if you're thinking it, I'm sure other people are thinking it. And like I said, the question is the answer. Now, my guest today is a good friend of mine. I've watched him grow and develop for years, and with the Dawson Academy and teaching dentists all over the world. Incredible stuff. And Sarah, my wife, and I went over to the UK a couple of years ago. You guys invited us over. You were incredible hosts. It was so much fun being with you guys, and really an incredible learning community that you have in the UK. And if people don't know who you are, who is Ian Buckle? Like, I want you to tell them your story and how you created what you have over there.
Well, I'm just a dentist. I go to work and we treat people. That's the main thing. But all through my career, I've tried to be the best I can in whatever it is. And I think we owe that to ourselves, and we owe it to our patients. I think there's nothing worse in a health environment to come across someone who's not keen to try and do the best they can for you. So, I had a lot of dead ends as I tried to get better. Obviously it's a long story, but postgraduate education back in those days wasn't quite what it is today. But at about the time of that sort of cosmetic revolution, we all want to make teeth that look great, and but in the UK we like to make things work as well. So we didn't really want that attitude of you prep the top teeth, you prep the bottom teeth, and then you put the empty wallet between the teeth. So we wanted to make things work. Right. And so, I was fortunate at that time that I came across John Cranham, and John had this great lecture, the cosmetic occlusal connection, which, we talk about getting you enticed. I didn't know who John was at the time, but I knew that those were two things that I really wanted to work with and connect. And so I went and saw John. He showed some great dentistry, beautiful dentistry, done in a predictable manner, but also with a great ethos behind it. A philosophy of care. And so that really got me hooked. And I was fortunate that we sort of in the early days of internet and dial-up, we were able to become friends, and John was a great mentor for me and helped me develop. I learned a lot about cosmetic dentistry, but always at the back of it was this idea that we wanted to make it as functional and to take care of our patients as well as possible. And of course, John had been fortunate in his career because, he'd had a great professor at university and then come across the Dawson Academy very early on. And so that had always been in his career, you know, and he was so willing to share that with me and encourage me that was great. I mean, that was perhaps the other big thing about it, was that he was someone who wanted you to be the best you could be, who wanted to encourage you. You know, I think, you know, a lot of people, when they teach, they want to show you how good they are, when I think the ethos of a teacher is to try and get your students to be better than you are, you know, and that's really what should make us proud. You know, and John encouraged me a lot, encouraged me to learn, opened doors for me, and then eventually we started doing some teaching together. And then when, of course, he became clinical director at Dawson Academy, that's when he got me involved. And now, you know, I have my practice. I run a busy practice where we, you know, I was telling you before, our philosophy is just to treat people who want to keep their teeth healthy and looking great for the rest of their life. We do some pretty complex dentistry, and I have a great team that can help me. But we also organize the Dawson Academy UK. We have a teaching facility which is adjacent to our practice, and we do a lot of things in the rest of Europe as well, and Scandinavia. So it's great. And you know, I mean, my early days of dentistry was really sitting on the stool thinking everyone was against me, you know, and you know, if people ask me what I did, I tell them that I played rugby, you know. So you know, you were embarrassed about being a dentist, and now, you know, I'm very proud about what it is that I do. I think we can do a great service for our patients, and I think people are excited about what we can do for them. And you know, it's that, you know, ripple effect as well. If you can treat one patient well, then that's a great thing. But if you can encourage more and more people to treat patients well, then hopefully we've created some ripples that's going to make dentistry an even more caring profession as we move forward.
Yeah, and you just said that so well, buddy, the true ethos of a teacher and how your journey, you know, and you and I share a lot of the similar journeys, because John was an incredibly, and still is, incredible teacher of mine, and as well as Pete. And that's exactly what I experienced going through the Dawson Academy. And we had the good fortune of being together at the Dawson Academy alumni experience, which you have to go to. I mean, you've got to see, and this is just an exciting journey. And it's, you know, Pete was the first one that helped me understand there's a difference between people that fix teeth and people that change lives. And it's not that what is good or bad. It's just, you have to choose which one you want to sign up for. And so I'm excited to chat with you, and I'm excited to learn. And I always learn so much from you. And the last lecture that you did at the Academy, you know, the alumni lecture, I was writing so fast because there's so many good things that you have to teach. But one of the things that you've learned over and over again teaching dentists all over the world is, you know, there's an ingredient. There is really one very big piece to all of this, because you can learn the technical training, but every practice needs something, and it's not more new patients. What is it, Ian?
Well, I think it's down to the vision and the leadership of the dentist. You know, I think it's so important. You know, as you say, we can learn some great dentistry, but, you know, we're not very good at telling people about what it is that we do. And very often we're not even great at telling our staff what it is that we want to do.
Right.
You know, we all know that you go to a course and you're so enthusiastic, and you go back on Monday and you're telling everyone all about it. And, you know, they're just thinking to themselves, give him 2 days and he'll calm down. And then we'll have the practice going the way that we'd like it to be again.
Right.
You know, and, you know, I see a lot of dentists frustrated by that. And, you know, say my background is sport, and, you know, I've been very fortunate to be sort of captain of teams, lead things or whatever. And I just think it's so great what teams can do when they decide on a common vision, and then they all get behind and push. You know, I think if you can have great teams, but if they're pushing in different directions, you just don't achieve some great things. So I think it's the vision and the leadership of the dentist, and then, you know, but they're also encouraging other team members to develop, to get the best out of them, and to lead in their own way, you know. And I think where that comes from is a clarity of vision and having good conversations with your staff about what it is you're hoping to achieve.
Right.
And, you know, and then also encouraging to share their ideas with them. You know, if we can get them to share their ideas, they come up with some great things. They see things in different ways than we do. You know, so it's always good to have that. But, I see my job as the leader is then to assemble those ideas and say, okay, based on what we talked about, I think this is what we should do. Are we all in? You know?
Yeah, and it's your call. And you mentioned this before. Talk about this. There's a fine line between leading and being a bully. You know,
Yeah.
And you're a big rugby guy, so everybody thinks you're all tough and, you know, but you're actually very sensitive, you know. So talk about the fine line between leading people and being a bully.
Well, I think so. I mean, you just got to be, again, people talk about sort of cultures that you develop in the practice or whatever. I think it's, people sometimes see strong leadership as, oh, he's trying to have it his way, you know, but at the end of the day, whose name's on the door, you know? Right. You know, they can come and go, and they will come and go. That's one thing that we learned very early on is, like, you know, there's people will come and go. They'll come and go throughout your life. They'll come and go throughout your practice, but you're going to have to live with this and cope with this on a daily basis. And so we want to work with people who share the same goals as we do. So it's about strong leadership. It's about having people understand that. And there's never any need to be argumentative. There's never any need to be aggressive, but you can be strong in what you believe in and strong in what you want for your practice and your patients, and just let people know that this is what we want to achieve. This is what we want to do. Yeah. And you know, you will get people who expect us. No, I mean, I see things that they say, oh, well, it's our job to make sure that our staff have the best job they can do. Well, I agree with that. It just might not be in my practice. So, you know,
right. Yeah.
So we can help them, you know, and if, you know, sometimes what we do is quite intense, and this is what it is that I'd like to do. And if that's not what you want to do, then that's okay. We could, you know, maybe you should be somewhere else, you know. But we have I'm very fortunate. We've got a great team at the practice now. It didn't just happen overnight. You know, I always remember when I saw John and John's practice and things that happened with him, and I thought, well, he's just lucky, you know. But it's actually that old thing, which is, you know, the harder I practice, the luckier I get.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
right.
The more you do and the more you're prepared to commit to what you do, the more these things seem to have a habit of turning up for you. You know, so, you know, I think everyone likes strong guidelines. They like to know what you expect from them, and then be clear on that. And then it's really just a case of judging what we're doing against what we said we expected from them. You know, so. Yeah, I mean, very simple thing like taking photographs. You know, it's a big deal in what we do, but you know, sometimes people say, "Oh, well, stop criticizing, don't do this." Well, if we're clear about what that photograph looks like, we can then encourage them to be able to grade how that is compared to what we expected, and they can almost deal with it themselves. They don't need us, you know. But it's creating that culture where it's super clear about what it is we hope to achieve. I think that's the main thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And you said it really well. I think one of the hardest parts is just being clear about what you want and not compromising that, just going after it. And then you also said, I've heard you say this a couple of times, you can't communicate through telepathy. You know, so explain that. What does that mean for a dentist watching this?
Well, I think a lot of the time, you know, I've certainly done it where you go on a course and then you come back and you think that because you've been on the course, they automatically got the information that we got, you know?
Right.
And, you know, I always encourage our dentists to, you know, the first thing to do is to go back and say, you know, I went on this course, I really enthused about it. And because of that, I'd like to share those ideas with you. And so to do that, this is the time I've blocked off to do it. And when they've picked themselves up off the floor, they will then say, okay, this guy is serious about this. He wants us to do this, you know. But if you're trying to tell them about it while they're having their lunch or they're trying to go home, that isn't going to happen.
Right.
So you just take an hour somewhere, you'd share those ideas and you know, and say, this is what I'd like to do. How do you feel about that? You know, and, you know, hopefully they're going to be encouraged by it. You know, I mean, you know, a lot of the time when I worked in the National Health Service, which is a great service that we do over in the UK, but it's pretty basic, you know, and we could see 30, 40 patients a day and our assistants would be sucking spit the whole day, you know. No, we're giving them an opportunity that they can take photographs, they can take impressions, they can help us with the patients, they could do all sorts of different things that's going to make their day so much more interesting, so much more exciting, and that we can actually develop a career for them in dentistry rather than just standing there sucking spit, So I think it's a great thing for the whole of our team and the whole of our staff, but we have to let them know what it is. Right. Certainly with reception, we got to let them know what it is that we expect. You just don't need the naysayer on the telephone at the front.
Right.
No. Do you do this? No. Okay.
Yeah. And I love the philosophy behind what you guys teach because it's so good. I've heard you guys all say this collectively, in photography, one of the things you want to do is just get the doctor out of the way or fire the doctor. And really that means so much more than the doctor stopping the photographs. It's really about bringing everybody with us. And as you and I and Ben were talking before we started, you guys were talking about rugby. One of the keys in rugby is try to get the most out of every player, and that's really essentially what you're doing in a great practice like this is teaching people to function at a much higher level. And what happens as a result is just it's a multiplying effect. It changes their lives, it changes everybody's life. It's not about how fast we can produce, it's about how we can all grow together. And I love the whole philosophy behind what you teach.
No, absolutely. And again, it's I don't think of myself as getting older, but unfortunately we all do. And so the way that I've always tried to help people and encourage people is, first of all, I needed to learn how to do it, and they would assist me, and then I would have them do it and I would assist them, and then eventually they're able to do it on their own. And then now, over the years, now my assistants teach each other what it is they need to do. Right. But one of my forms of leadership is that I want to be there for them. So if they need some help with something, that I still know enough about it to be able to help out and to give some advice and to try and give them a pathway that's going to help them develop. Or maybe if they're teaching someone else, what's a good way to help that person to develop, Right. So that's a different role. But I strongly believe in that, if that pathway of, that they help you, you help them, and then they move on and they teach. And certainly one of the things that we've all learned is that there's only the best way to find out whether you understand something is to try and teach it, Right. There's always some very interesting moments when someone asks you that question, you think, oh, I'll just get back to you on that one,
Yeah. Absolutely. And I want to talk about the path that you're talking about, because it's, everybody thinks, well, this path is, sometimes if they're watching you, well, it was easy for you. It's not easy. This is a hard path. And what happens, let's say I'm a young dentist watching this, Ian, and you know what, I don't have a team or I've got a few team members that don't want to go where I'm going. And, I have to embrace something called, confrontation. You talked about this before. This is not an easy thing. How do you do it?
No, I mean, sometimes it feels like a confrontation, mm-hmm. And it's again, people see me and they get to look like this from playing rugby, and they think that you like that sort of thing. I really don't, yeah. And so but the secret really is to, first of all, to get yourself calm, mm-hmm. and then to sit down with them in a calm environment, and say, look, this is what I'm trying to do, do you have any problem with that? Or how can I help you? How mm-hmm. can I help you achieve what it is that we're looking to do? Right. And if someone doesn't want to do that, then I say we can help them with their career, but it just might be somewhere else. And but don't be scared of it. There's a lot of books that I've never read, but I've read the titles. Mm-hmm. I always remember there was one called Eat That Frog, which is, sometimes I have to get up in the morning and say, right, what should I do? Right. And then I just have to face up to it and do it. And the sooner that you get it done, the better, Yeah. And so, I try never to put things off to the end of the day, because it never happens. I'll try and get it done first thing, get it out of the way. And, the other thing is, don't be scared of it, mm-hmm. because most of the time, there are times when it's not the most pleasant thing, mm-hmm. but there's a lot of times when, the other person has been feeling in a similar way, and they just want to clear the air. And some of those people can be the best that you can get, once you've cleared the air and they understand what it is you're trying to do and they want to get on your side. But if you don't talk about it, it never moves forward, So the secret, I think, is don't be scared of it. Be calm. Take the time to talk with them, and then to develop a way forward. Always, one of my things is, a lot of the time with dentistry, we look at these big plans. We have these great big goals for our practice, but then we also need to understand what's next. What's the next thing that I need to do to be able to move this forward. And so that's what I always want to establish at the end of anything like that, is to be able to say, okay, so what are we going to do next about this to make this better for both of us?
Yep. And sometimes those little steps just create the momentum that you need and the confidence. Now, I want to just reference the Eat the Frog book, because I have that book. Yeah. And really the premise of it is every day we have to eat a frog. And sometimes we wait to eat the frog. And in the book, he just says you eat the frog right away. So if you got to do something lousy that doesn't feel good, do it first thing in the morning. And it just opens things up. And you're like, wow, that wasn't so bad. And a lot of times when you eat the frog in the morning, you're like, it wasn't nearly as bad as you thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely. That's what I was just saying. It's often not as bad as you think. And the feeling of release when it's out the way is amazing. It's just great to be able to get that out the way and to think, now I've got the whole day ahead of me, rather than constantly waiting for this thing to happen. And it's that's a terrible situation. So, but the thing is to be sure about what that vision is, and then always, to be constant, and persistent in what you do. I don't wish to sound humble about things. I'm not the smartest person. I'm not the best at various things, but I am a very persistent person. Mm-hmm. And, so if I've decided upon it, certainly as a person, and certainly as a younger person, I just wanted to know what the boundaries were, and then I could choose whether to push them or not. Right. What the punishment might be, but you just want to know what they are. I think the worst thing that we can do is to constantly be changing direction, changing tune, changing what we're doing, and that leaves everyone uncertain about what it is you're trying to do. Mm-hmm. Whereas if you are constant in what it is you're trying to do, I think they get a very clear idea pretty quickly, and they can decide themselves whether they want to be on that journey with you.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things you guys do really well in education is you get everyone engaged mentally when you do your training at the Dawson Academy, the way you guys, and a lot of times it's what are you going to start? And then what are the behaviors that you're going to stop when you go into your practice? And when you really are very conscious about that, again, you're making these little steps. And what you find is you're like, oh my gosh, this is really happening. And you talked about this. You got to be careful what you wish for, because when you learn a lot, like some of the stuff you teach is incredible, like everything you guys do, but you got to be careful because you could wake up with a TMD practice and go, I don't know if I signed up for that. Can you talk about that and what that means?
Yeah, one of the things, certainly when I first had Dr. Dawson, and when I had Pete for the first time, and he talked about this thing about being a go-to dentist, and I thought, oh, that sounds great. And it's maybe it's not for you. This can be crazy. You can get all the big things, the crazy things. And sometimes it's nice to be able to prep a tooth with your eyes closed a little bit. And take some of the easy money. So you just, again, I think it works two ways. Number one is I think we can get overwhelmed by the whole thing and the fact of all the things that we need to do, but the best way to start all this is one step at a time. So to maybe think that maybe I could do this for one patient a week or one patient a month, or, I'm going to make these small changes one step at a time, and to not get overwhelmed by the whole thing, and then this is where you really need the vision for your practice and the clarity, because if you don't, the next thing is you become either someone that does big cases all the time. You could be getting a lot of TMD patients. It could become something that you don't want it to be. It may well already be something you don't want it to be, because a lot of our practices are dictated by staff or they're dictated by patients, you can become the champion patcher of teeth, and maybe you want to do some bigger cases. And one of the things that I had to learn a lot was to not be afraid to tell my patients what it is that I like to do, and to tell the patients the stories that I want them to tell other people, But people love to tell stories, and you've got to give them those stories, and then they'll pass them on. And it's always brings a smile to your face when you hear the stories come back into your practice, whether that's with dentists or with patients. But that's how I think it works. And, but you've got to be clear about the vision for the practice, because otherwise it could easily become something you didn't want, and dentistry is such a great profession. And that, for me, as my children have grown and gone through different stages of school, I've been able to alter my schedule, alter the way that I work, to be able to be with them at the times when they wanted me, and I wanted to be with them. Right. But if you're not clear about what you want to do, how you want your schedule to be, it can easily end up being something that you didn't expect. Right. And I think the thing is, I'm probably an amateur psychologist and maybe philosopher, and I think it's developing that philosophy for your practice. It's like when I heard that thing, the Dawson philosophy. Well, what's a philosophy? Wasn't that a bit grand? Well, it just means a set of congruent ideas. That's what it is. It's a set of congruent ideas that, when you take them, will lead you in a certain path. Right. So I had to think about what was my philosophy for my life, what was my philosophy in the practice, and then when you have a philosophy, it's a bit like for dentists, it's like making a diagnosis. If you got the diagnosis, you can make a treatment that points towards the diagnosis. Right. Is if you have a philosophy for your practice, then you can develop your practice towards that philosophy. Mm-hmm. If you don't, it could end up anywhere you don't expect it to be. And so the other thing about this is that sometimes that idea of being the go-to dentist is maybe a little scary for some people. Mm-hmm. But you can do a great service for your patients by just knowing this stuff. You can do a great service by maybe doing it once a week or once a month or twice a week or whatever it is. But you have to keep a careful eye on what it is that you do. Otherwise, the practice will become something you didn't expect, but also the way your schedule works will get out of whack as well. Right. And so those two things really go hand in hand. And, that's another reason where you get your team involved and you constantly check in to see how you are relating to what it is that you expected it to be, as a team,
Yeah. And you do this with your team. You do this with your specialists. You guys do this as instructors together. I love the quote that you shared at the Dawson Academy alumni retreat. You said, if you want to go fast, you go alone. But if you want to go far, you go together. And you could apply that to any aspect that you're talking about here.
It is. I mean, certainly, I had a practice before this, and I used to do everything. You would do the account, you do everything. And it was great because you understood everything about the practice. But that's the limit. That's the limit of the way it is. And it was your thing. No one else was involved. But you can go fast. You can make your own decisions. But you can never be as strong as if you've got a great team. And one of the things that I discovered as soon as I wanted to move into this field is the only way that I was going to be able to do this was to be able to work with a team of assistants, hygienists, all those different things that could take the accountants, could take the things off my shoulders that I shouldn't be doing, that I don't like doing, get those out of the way so I could concentrate on the things that I should be doing. Right. And similarly with the specialists and when we look at trying to do great dentistry and look after our patients, we need that team there. That's a whole story. Maybe we should talk about that another day, Kirk. But that's a whole story in itself. Again, I used to see John. I think, well, no, it's okay for him. He just happens to live in this place where he's got all these people around him. Right. But you never find them if you don't speak to people, you don't ask, you're not clear about what your goals are, so you can find the people who want to share those goals with you. It's better to find out quickly than 2 years later. So It's trying to, but if you get that team together, for me, there is so much satisfaction as working as part of a team. I have a great group of people in the practice. Do we have problems? Of course we do.
Right.
But it's so much fun to be around them. We have a great group of. I've just been with my periodontist in the practice just now, and my orthodontist last week. And we have a great group of people because of them. They are so smart. They're so much smarter than me, and right. I can use what they know to help me.
Yeah.
It's and through that I can help the patients. And right. when you get different perspectives, it's amazing how much more you see. Yeah. And in the Dawson Academy, we got a great team there. I always think, teams for me is a bit like top trumps. You have the top trumps card game. So mm-hmm. If it's just you can be pretty good at lots of things. You can sort of be like a decathlete or something. But if you've got your top trump for aesthetics, your top trump for occlusion, your top trump for perio, that's a very, very powerful thing when you can bring those things out when you need to. And then the skill is really in getting that team to work together and to, and that's, again, it comes back to that thing about leadership. We've been very fortunate with John. Always been a great leader and pull that team together to make it work, and that's the job of the leader, is to pull the team and to give them a clear goal and help them move in the direction that there is we want to do. So
yeah. And can I ask you on that? Because you mentioned this, the difference in perspectives when you're putting a team together. And I'm just going to ask you some of the tough questions that I sometimes hear, about functional training, because the dogma question. Now, I know the answer because I know you guys really well. A lot of times dentists are resistant to learn some of this or to go to they're like, well, what about all the dogma of this? And the quote that you shared was so awesome. Again, I learned so much when you talk. It's the mark of a truly educated mind is the ability to entertain other ideas without having to accept them. And you guys, it's not about dogma. You as a clinician have to decide how you want to practice. And it's being able to take all these different perspectives and apply it in your own vision and leadership. Can you speak to that? Because it isn't just one way and the only way to do it. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think so. It's certainly with, I don't want to make sure I don't get too politically incorrect, but
right.
maybe that's going to get even better then. So,
I love it. Be a little edgy. But I want to speak to those questions because a lot of times people think it's just dogma, and is it or is not?
But occlusion and those sort of things is very much like people say it's often like religion, and it says the dogma, it's those things. I know what the truth is that most people are saying largely the same things. Right. With a slightly different perspective. And there's great people in all dimensions and in all fields. But for some reason, sometimes they start to argue about the little things.
Right.
That maybe they're important, maybe they're not. But they argue about those things rather than concentrating on the common strands that hold it all together. And it's, again, like religion. Maybe there's good people in all religions and we all end up in the same place, So
right.
Maybe that's the same thing with all this, But there's great people in lots of different things. You'll find there's a lot of common strings. You'll find that there's great people who want to help you in your career and help you with the way it is. But there is, Pete Dawson, Pete in his 80s, says, I want the Dawson Academy to be the best think tank in dentistry, mm-hmm. and that's exactly what it is. And I love digital dentistry. I love all. In Europe we're very big on minimal invasion and preservation of tooth structure. So what that's been about is to be able to take the timeless principles that people like Pete have spoken about, the things that have really stood the test of time, because human beings haven't changed that much in anatomy over those years.
Right.
But then to be able to blend those timeless principles with the great new materials that we have, with the great new principles that we have, with the technologies that we have, and to be able to bring those things together to get the best from modern dentistry and modern life, and so I sometimes hear, oh, this is old, or and very often they put the word old-fashioned on there. Mm-hmm. Caring about people is never old-fashioned,
right?
And trying to, one of the things that we have at Dawson, which again, I don't know that it's necessarily exclusive, is this thing, is witty, and would I do it on me?
Right.
In the UK, we call it the daughter test. So would you do it for your daughter? They never call it the wife test, and there's a reason for that. So, but they. This is the way that we need to judge things, and that's why, orthodontics has become a big thing. If we can get the tooth into the right position first, we can prep it less, we can do more minimally invasive restorations, because that's what it is that we'd like to do. Right. And again, if you look at Pete's treatment options 45 years ago, he spoke about reshape, reposition, restoration was the third thing, and now we're engaging with those things again. I think, to be honest, I think sometimes we don't do ourselves a service, because, very often we talk about those things and then we show a lot of porcelain everywhere. I think sometimes we do that because it illustrates the points very well.
Right.
But, a lot of the things that we're doing nowadays is blended those timeless principles with the new technology, digital technology, adhesion principles, and we're really using the old stuff blended with the new to get the best results for our patients.
Right.
The biggest challenge, one of the biggest, to get me into the clinical thing, one of the biggest, we take these little bits of porcelain, little bits of composite, and we expect them to stay there. But the best way to get them to stay there is not only to know how to stick them to the tooth, but also to manage the forces that act on them.
Right.
And it's just ridiculous to be able to do one without the other, and so that's, I actually, just before a few weeks ago, I had a conversation with Pete about this. I said, how did you come up with this thing about the concept of complete dentistry? And that's really what it is. It's just complete dentistry. How does all this fit together? It's not the latest, greatest craze. It's not, things come and go. It's about time-tested principles, designing where the teeth need to go, and making it work so that it's functionally correct, aesthetically correct, and most importantly, appropriate for each patient.
Right.
Because not every patient wants that great big Hollywood smile. Thanks for giving that to us, by the way. But some patients just like decent looking teeth. Some people like A3. It works for them. Yeah. I have some patients where I say, do we want to bleach these, or do you want me to get some mahogany composites? So it's so it's about being appropriate for those patients. Right. And so, but if we can understand how to blend the time-tested stuff with the new stuff, I think we'll be in a great place.
Yeah. And again, on the education side of things, you guys are over in India now. I mean, you're all over the place. You can see dentists from all over the world. What are some of the things that you hope for the future of education? Because we could certainly make this argument that what every practice needs is leadership and vision. But what about dentistry? Maybe the next generation of dentists coming up. Leadership is one of those things that's critically important to this great profession. Where do you see dentistry going, or what are some of the things that you would like to see in dentistry in the next 2, 4, or 5 years?
Well, I think it's an extremely exciting time with all the digital things that's going on. As I mentioned to you before, one of the interesting things in different countries is the different systems that exist, and that changes things. Certainly, I see it in the UK. I think it's a little bit in the US. I mean, my generation is responsible for breeding a generation that doesn't want to lead. That wants to follow somewhere else, and that's why we get a lot of people who are happy with corporate stuff and this, and they're happy for someone else to take care of things, and that is okay. But again, a cheesy old quotation is the best way to predict the future is to create it.
Right.
And so when you're working for someone else, sometimes you can get the hard word the next day. Whereas if the only person that can sack us is our patients, right. and so it's great to be in that sort of control. And so what I'd encourage some of the younger, it's so exciting to get involved with the young ones. And again, one of the things, if this message gets to anyone, and maybe a Facebook generation, is sometimes people say, oh, you don't need to know this stuff for 10 or 15 years. Well, since does the anatomy change after 10 or 15 years? Does the care of the patient change after 10 or 15 years? I mean, I understand because, you're going to find out the problems, and now hopefully we're going to give you some solutions. But I think if you can understand what those things are early on in your journey, I always think it's a lot like children. Whatever I tell you, you're not going to do what I tell you.
Right.
I'm just hoping that you're going to do it 6 times rather than the 60 times it took me before I realized that it wasn't a great idea.
Right.
And that's sort of what it's about. And then to help those young dentists to develop a career and a pathway that they would like. And it could be in corporate dentistry, it might be on their own, but to be able to help them develop the life that they would like based on this great career.
Right. Yeah, and we like to pigeonhole the next generation that comes behind us. But one of the things, and there's so many great things about the generations behind us, is they do want to do meaningful work. And I think the two things that inspired me the most about Pete were number one, the core values. I mean, when he talked, he brought the core values of things that I already had, that my father and my mother had, and it just brought him to life. And I'd never heard that before, and it just excited me because it was about doing the right thing. And Pete always said this, and I know you guys teach us, making money is the byproduct. Don't focus on the money. Do the right thing with the right patient. And just like you said, it's appropriate for the right patient. And then the second thing that inspired me about Pete was the never stop learning. I asked him at the end of the top 10 course, it was a 3-day course. I said, Dr. Dawson, what's the one thing? And I was 24. So when you talk about being arrogant or unwilling to listen to your parents' advice, he caught me right at that moment because I was willing to listen to him, but maybe not the people around me. He said, Kirk, one thing I would say is don't ever say you have it all figured out. Stay in the learning position, because you'll find that the dentists that you meet that have it all figured out, number one, they're not that much fun to be around. And number two, even at my age, I'm constantly learning. It keeps the game exciting. So I really think it's a critical part of the future of dentistry, and the leadership and the instruction is we always have to stay on our learning edge because there's so much to learn. And then your learning really starts when you finish the primary education in dentistry, don't you think?
Oh, no, absolutely. I mean, I wasn't a great student when I was at university. There was far more exciting things to be doing than look at teeth, So,
right.
But you get out there, and now you see the real world. You see, because you've got to do this dentistry, you've got to treat people, but also win this environment and deal with staff and all those other great things that's going on. But it is that thing of being an eternal student. And I was talking to one of my young associates the other day, and I'm not great with money and things like that, but we're very fortunate. We've done reasonably well, but. I was telling them about the benefit of just putting a small amount away from an early age. And I said, it works with money, but it works with your education as well. Right. Just put a small amount away every day, every week, every month. And before you know it, you'll be amazed at where you'll be. And what excites me so much is to see what these young people could do if they just did that. Their minds are so open. They understand technology so well, and it just makes you so proud when you see someone doing great, and then to take those ideas and to challenge them again, and to are these still viable? Should we be thinking something differently? With CBCTs and MRIs, we're finding new stuff all the time. So we've got to be prepared to find out. Sometimes we'll be right for the right reasons. Sometimes we'd be right for the wrong reasons, and sometimes we were just lucky, Right. But it's just a case of being open to new stuff, and then being able to judge what's gone in the past. And but I think as young people, it's such an exciting time for them. And there aren't many great things about getting older, but one of the great things is to be able to share experience. And I say, just trying to help them not make some of the same mistakes that I made, that we made over the years, or to try and make them less. Right. That really what encourages me to do this. I mean, Kirk, you've met my children, my family, and I have a daughter who has challenges with their teeth, if you like. And, people ask you questions, why do you do this? And you come up with all these BS excuses about why you do things. Right. About 3-4 years ago, someone said that to me, and they sort of caught me from the blind side. And I said, you know what? All I want is that if my daughter came in your practice, you'd have a clue what to do with her.
Right.
And that was it. That's really what it's about. And it also talks back to the point that I was making before, because you might be the guy with the specialist and the orthodontist or the periodontist. You might be that big go-to dentist, but equally you could just be someone who is interested. Right. Someone who says, you know what, this is not the sort of dentistry that I do, but I know someone who loves to do this and would love to help your daughter. And the other thing that we need to understand from the business perspective is those patients who we send to great people will bring us so many more patients because we did the right thing for them. Right. Too many times we think that we're giving stuff away or whatever, but it comes back to you 10 times over when you're able to give people good referrals and help them out in the right way.
Amen, brother. Well said. What other pieces of advice would you give to a young dentist that might be watching this? Because we do watch the metrics. A lot of people are watching this late at night. We've got a lot of people now overseas watching this. But if you were to give advice to a young dentist who might be watching this late at night, what would you say about a successful career in dentistry? What are some of the keys?
Well, I mean, I think the first thing is to find a mentor, find someone that you resonate with, find someone you get on with, and whose philosophy that you enjoy, and see if they'll take you on, see if they'll help you on that journey. That's perhaps the number one thing. Don't get obsessed with it. There's far more to life than teeth. I know some people that maybe know me these days might think that that's not the case, but when I was younger, there was rugby and I enjoyed other things too, so, and those things are great. And I was talking with Ben before, rugby was the great antidote to dentistry for me. Sometimes when you could go out there and I was fortunate. I had a great group of friends and we'd hit each other and do all those things. And you'd drive home thinking, you know what, this is not the end of the world. Whatever happened today, there's a perspective to it, so get involved with a mentor, try and develop a career pathway, but also develop your other interests, and make sure that you try and spend your time sensibly. I tend to see two groups of young dentists now, either the ones who say, I'm not interested, which is a shame. I mean, it's a great shame to think that you might be involved in a profession that you not interested in. It's a great shame for the patient when they come to see you. But then I see other dentists who get so entrenched, so involved in it, and they spend so much time. And I try not to go on Facebook that much because it just seems to get me into trouble. But it's like, we feel burnt out after a few years. That's because you're making it too intense. There's other things to do, and again, I mean, obviously it's from Stephen Covey's book, but I also got it from Cranham as well. Don't forget to sharpen the saw. You got to take time to refresh yourself and to be sharp. My big thing has always been persistence. I've never been the fastest, but I can keep going. But sometimes you need a rest, and you need to be away from dentistry to be able to understand what it is that you're looking for. Right. And so what would I say? Find a mentor, do a little bit of education on a regular basis, and it might sound, as a young person, it might sound a little bit fancy, but to sit down and really think about what is it I want to achieve in my career, and have clear goals about what you hope to achieve in the next 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. And because the thing about goals is, for me anyway, is, sometimes it may not be where you end up going. But when you go on a journey and you plan the journey, sometimes it's the things that you see along the way that get you most excited. Right. And it may be the great thing for me is that because I try to set goals and I try to go on this journey, I came across all these great people that maybe pulled me in slightly different directions than I expected.
Mm-hmm.
But it was because I had the goals that I went on the journey, and I'm a working class boy from Liverpool. How did you get to meet you? The baldy-headed Facebook star.
I feel the same way. I think that's spot on. I could have never expected the richness of the friendships and the intimate love that I share with the people that have just been incredible instructors and wise people along the way. And it keeps happening. And even it's not even the older one, it's the younger ones. I had a chance to see Zach Sisler at the, I love watching these next generation of leaders come up. And again, it's what you said, Ian, along the way, a lot of unexpected stuff happens when you embrace the learning process and you don't call these people, colleagues. They're friends, they're intimate friends that you are, it makes all of our lives better. It's incredible.
Yeah. And sometimes, it's like, I guess some of the young guys guys and gals that I deal with, they'll say, "Oh, I don't know, I don't feel like going to this," and I say, just go, see what happens. If you're not in the room, nothing can happen. People don't realize it. Not only do I'm a very shy person. I don't like that. One of the reasons why I like doing what I do is that when I go in the room, that if I'm doing the lecture, they know who I am already, so I don't have to introduce myself. It's great for me. But if you're in the room, then there's a chance you'll meet someone. There's a chance that you might meet the person that changes your life, whether it's in dentistry, whether it's in some other way. But if you're not there, if you're sitting at home on the PlayStation or watching the TV, that ain't going to happen.
Yeah.
So get out there, do some old fashioned people talking.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I think there's got to be a pattern or a system where you get away from your practice. Just getting away from work or going. There's so much to be said. You work in a 2 to 3 inch space with unbelievable intensity. You have to go and refresh your perspective because it's not so much the education; it's the fact you come back and the fire is relit, and you come back and you say, "Wow, there's so many great things I can do." In this great profession. So, buddy, I am so incredibly grateful. So I got another great question here. I got to ask you this. Deepak asked this question here. U.S. News and World Report has ranked dentist as the top of 100 best jobs. Many young dentists focus on the trials and tribulations, especially relating to staff, but they ought to really reflect on this glorious statistic. I mean, I totally agree, Deepak. It was the #1 profession in the United States. I don't know how that relates in Europe or UK. Do you find this type of narrow focus from the young dentists over there too, that they don't reflect on this glorious statistic?
Yeah, I think that's true. When I first got into this sort of dentistry, I started the study club, and the first thing I had to do was to ban any talk of the National Health Service. Right. And the reason for that is it was just a case of everyone discussing the negativity of what was going on, and there was I learned from you, Kirk. The energy suckers, the energy vampires. It's like and you don't realize it until someone says that to you. And then you think, these people are just draining me the whole time, and yes, you do hear a lot of that negativity. Oh, I wouldn't do this. Why would you want to do this? Dentistry is a great job. You can make it what it is that you would like it to be, and you have that choice. And so, I do hear this sort of, negative and we have all this CQC about how we run the practice. You know what? All those things, they're a pain in the ass. Of course they are, but they're just a means to an end. And we can choose to take those as a negative, or we can actually see them as creating new and positive effects on the practice to help us to be better. And I just hope that there's enough people out there that can say what a great job this is, and to encourage them that if they are willing to take it on, that they will have a great life and a great career through this job. So there certainly is that out there, but I think with the right people and great people like you spreading the word, and hopefully what we do, and there's so many amazing people who are just inspiring in dentistry is that if we can spread that word, then that's going to be far more powerful than the people sitting on their chair being negative about what it is that we do.
Yeah. Amen, brother. Thank you so much for saying that. And I just enjoy every minute I get with you. And I want to do many more of these with you on different subjects and to help us understand a more global perspective of what's going on there in dentistry. Now, if people want to get a hold of you, Ian, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
I mean, you can if you can get me on my email, which is ibuckle@buckleadc. You know, I'm not difficult to find on the internet. You know, so. You can find me through you can either send it, if you want my practice website, you send it to info, I'll get it in the end, or through the BD Seminars website. But, you know, if there's anything, you know, one of the things that I have been so fortunate with in this, particularly this later part of my career, is the willingness of other people to help me, you know, and, you know, there are people out there who don't want to help. Don't get me wrong. There's lots of courses that you go on where maybe you go on the course and that's the end of that. That's okay. That's the end. But there's so many great people who want to help you, you know, and again, it's a philosophy in what it is that you do. And so in order to help spread that, you know, if you email me, if I can help you with anything, I'll do my best. You know, I have a busy practice to run and I do some teaching and you know, I like to mess around a little bit, but I'll always try and get back to you and at least try and steer it in the right direction. But you know, I'd be happy to help however we can.
Yeah, I appreciate that about that, buddy. Please reach out to Ian if you have questions. You could also check out his BD Seminars website and the Dawson Academy. Those are links that are listed right there. Check them out. You will absolutely love them. And all the other things that they have. You have study clubs. You've got incredible opportunity to be on that path. So Ian, stay on for a second because there's a couple things I want to run by and just talk and just get caught up. But if you're watching this, again, thank you so much for watching the show. We're just crazy grateful. It's growing every single day. And again, getting great feedback. And I want to continue to just deliver on the things that you guys are asking. If you have questions, please add them to the feed. And until we see you next time, keep watching the Best Practices Show. You guys have a great day. Thanks a lot.
Bye.